Hi and welcome to Dr. Mix. Today I am gonna get some help with my Commodore 64 synthesizer project. Coming up.
Dr. Mix presents the Commodore 64 Synthesizer.
Hey guys, great to have you on the channel. There has been quite a lot of enthusiasm about my Commodore 64 synthesizer project. And you know what? I think I need some help from the 8-bit guy. And guess what? I have him here on Skype today. Let's call him up. Hey David.
Hey Claudio.
How you doing, baby?
Great. I haven't seen you since Germany.
Thomann event, right?
Yeah.
Thomann, actually, I found out it's Thomann, not Thomann. Thomann. Anyway, you look great with your melted Rubik's Cube. I wouldn't expect anything less fashionable than that.
Well, thank you. I guess I could have worn my Sid Ship shirt. That would have been more appropriate for what we're doing here. So, yeah, you caught me in the middle of filming an episode about this old Casio keyboard here, which probably see in a few weeks.
Look at that. That was beautiful. Looks very rare.
Yeah, it is. It actually uses a barcode scanner to read barcodes off of and play music off barcodes. It's
no
weird.
way. That's so cool.
But I got my trusty C64 here, and I guess we're going to talk about that, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, I thought maybe I should explain to you first what I am trying to do, correct?
Well, I did see your video that you just released yesterday, so I have a little bit of head start there. And yeah, I saw that you have the synth card already, which I was going to recommend that you get the synth card when you first contacted me that you're getting a 64. I actually don't have a synth card. I have something really close. I have the Messiah cartridge. But the synth card has some definite advantages because you don't even need a monitor like a screen or any kind to run the synth card. You can actually run it on stage with, just the computer. And I got an opportunity to play with the synth card at a meetup. I was in Dallas a few weeks ago, and somebody had one there, and that was my first time seeing it. And I'm like, well, that's pretty cool because you could just take your C64 on stage and play it without even needing to lug a monitor or anything there, and you can it's all keyboard controlled. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, in fact, I know that there are quite a few cards around, but you know what? I am going to take this slowly and give you question by question. I will start with the simpler ones, and I'll go to the more complicated ones.
Okay.
Don't worry, I won't take you like a half day on this. But so here's the idea. I want a synthesizer that it doesn't need to have keys. It's just fine to be as a module. I would like it to look roughly like a mini Moog. So the keyboard and then a panel which has its own little screen, little display, and then as many knobs as possible so that I can get access to, meow, meow, and things like that. How many knobs do you think I can put on a machine like that? I mean, what are the limitations of the input-output section?
Well, a lot of it's going to have to do with the limitations of the synth card. I don't know how many it would support, but technically speaking, there are only 4 analog inputs on a C64. So 4, I would think, would be the maximum without some significant hardware modification, which the synth card probably wouldn't support. So,
and
yeah.
say if I was talking instead about the Messiah card, which I happen to have bought.
Oh, you have one of those too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just want to find something that works nicely.
I think you're going to be limited to four knobs.
Right. So those pictures that I've seen around on the internet with more than 4 knobs probably is for other things that have been added on as mods.
I could be wrong. I'm not an expert with these synth cartridges. It's possible they support some add-ons. I'd have to look into it. But
so I guess that 2 inputs would be from the paddle control?
Yeah. And there's 2 paddles for each joystick port, so that would give you 4 potential paddles.
Right. How about switches?
Yeah, I mean, if you're using the joystick port, you could put quite a few on there, but again, it's going to depend on what the software supports, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to really look into that.
Okay. You already know a lot more than me, so absolutely. So then I guess there is, of course, I mean, I still want it to work as a computer, right? So I've heard that you can use like a memory card reader instead of like a typical 1541.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's is there anything I should know about it besides I need some soldering iron or?
Well, I mean, you can get those ST2IC, and I wish I had one here handy. It's actually in the other room. But it just plugs into the disk drive port. I mean, theoretically, you could mount it internally, and yeah, you'd need to do a little bit of soldering to do that. But just to test it out, it would work fine, just plugging into the...
Right. So basically, it's about making a nice case for this thing where I can put everything, you know, in its own place, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds pretty straightforward. All right, I've seen you put on a second SID chip on your one. How difficult was that?
It wasn't terribly difficult, but I actually ended up taking it back out. I wasn't really thrilled with that product because it wasn't... it depended on... It was a little daughter board, and that's the one you saw where it had to fit into the original SID socket. And when you move the computer around, it tended to fall out of place. And so there's so little software that actually makes use of it that I just didn't. I got annoyed, so I took it back out. I don't know if the Synth cart uses it. I know the Messiah cart will, but even the Messiah cart, when I played around with it, I found that it didn't. Having a second SID chip didn't really offer that much advantage. To what it could do. Oh, if you were using the sequencer part, it kind of helped. A lot of the other stuff, I don't know.
No, I don't think I want to use it as a sequencer. I mean, I mean, to be doing sequence, I mean, maybe, yeah, one day for fun, but, you know, I've got Cubase, come on. You know, it's like, once I have a MIDI in, I'm going to be fine. I'm more worried about getting a pristine sound out of it, which I guess leads me to the next question. There's a big hum coming out of the SID, and I've heard that you need to basically ground the sample input of the SID. Do you confirm?
That is correct. So, yeah, the SID chip has a floating input line, which was used for a variety of external cartridges, like speech synthesis cartridges, for example, that would take input into the SID chip, and the SID chip just passes that audio, it amplifies it and passes it right back out along. It doesn't actually do anything with the audio, but yeah, because that input line is floating, it can pick up all kinds of interference from the video chip and all kinds of other stuff. So really you just need to ground that pin, or alternatively you could put a resistor to bring it to ground, but I think most people just solder it straight to ground, and I don't think there's any problem with that, and that'll eliminate that hum.
Fantastic. Is there any other piece of advice that you have for me in order to get a cleaner sound that you know on the top of your head?
Well, you could experiment with different chips. I've heard some people say different ones sound better. Changing the capacitors can make some difference on there's 2 capacitors for the SID chip, or maybe it's 4, I forgot, for the filters. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just personal preference. Right.
Got it. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. What else can I pick your brain on? Oh yeah. Have you got any advice on what MIDI display I could try and fit on a synthesizer, on a Dr. Mix Commodore 64 synthesizer?
Well, how big do you want the display to be?
I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, I don't know, maybe 3 inches or something like that, 3 inches, something like that.
Well, you know, the original Sony PlayStation, the little mini PlayStation, had a little screen you could buy that was an accessory you could stick on and make it kind of like a little portable, and had a little screen about so big. And I had one at one point, but those are really cool to hack. They make great little screens. They do accept composite input as well as RGB, which the C64 can't use the RGB, but yeah, they display composite video really nice, and they're about the right size. You could take the screen out of that. Alternatively, there's a million other little composite screens you could probably find on eBay or something if you looked around.
All right, so it's not like something really difficult to source.
No.
Right. I'm left just with a couple of questions. I've seen you demonstrate the 3 different oscillators of the SID chip on a sort of black oscilloscope thingy. What was that?
Okay, that's actually a real pain to create. The way I do that is I actually have to use an emulator. I can't use the real thing. And some emulators give you the option to or it doesn't even have to be an emulator. It could be just like a SID player, right?
Right.
And some of them give you the option to mute some of the voices. So like if you want to record voice 1, you can mute voice 2 and 3, and then play your song, and then now you've got voice 1. You do it again, get voice 2, and do it again and get voice 3, and that way you've got all 3 voices. And then you can record it through like an oscilloscope program or something like that, and then you have to mix it all together in video editing. It's a real pain. I don't know, there may be an easier way to do it, but that's how I've always done it. I do have a couple of suggestions for you I was thinking about earlier. I've never done this before, but I noticed that you were playing the C64 just using the keys on the keyboard.
That's right.
And I had this idea, and somebody else has probably done this, but I've never actually seen it done. If you were to grab a keyboard from a 64C, those keys are white. You could put white keys and then use the black keys up here, to simulate the white and black keys of a
That's actually a very
keyboard.
good idea.
Alternatively, you could pick up one of these guys. These are relatively inexpensive, and that way you can get you an overlay.
And I used to have that.
Yeah.
But I think I had a sub brand of it, and it was so bad that the hinge was actually the plastic itself. So you would play about 3 songs, and then the plastic would be gone and the keys would come out. So yeah. No, but that's quite cool. Actually, I like that idea very much, because you don't, you can still use the computer as the computer, but it looks cool.
But then that way you can better see which keys are the, C, D, E, F, G, etc.
Right. By the way, do you know if the 2 keyboards are compatible? Because this one seems to be a bit rusty. There's a bit of oxide. If I change it for the C1, is that gonna fit? And then I just need to change the caps, or do I have to work with this one?
The whole keyboard on the 64C is actually completely swappable with the 64 and the VIC-20 if you swap the whole mechanism. However, there are at least 2 different mechanisms out there, and the keys are not interchangeable between them. So as long as you get compatible mechanisms, the keys will swap. But yeah, that is a consideration, making sure you get the right one. Curious to see what you can make out of.
Well, yeah, I mean, I am a bit focused on giving it a nice, clean audio, and I'm thinking of maybe using a gate. So if I could build a little gate, because as you know, the notes keep on going because they couldn't, the ADSR couldn't actually get the notes, the oscillators completely mute. So there is always this of the last note that you played that keeps on ringing. So I figured if I could put a nice gate, like a noise gate, then I could clean up the sound a little bit like that. And then maybe I could even, make it balanced out, maybe amplify it and make it, instead of -10, make it +4, so they can be recorded professionally. So I have a few ideas, but I'm not exactly sure how many of them I can actually, make happen.
Okay.
Cool. Have you got any last words of wisdom before I embark in this crazy project?
I don't know. The only other person I could recommend that you chat with is Paraphractic. I don't know if you watch his, but he's done quite a few videos on modding C64 to, for audio, and he's done several songs completely with the C64, multi-track type songs. So I've always wanted to, and I've never gotten around to it yet. But yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see what you can come up with.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, the next thing you know, I will want to see you, and I want to make some music with you.
Well, you can come to Texas, and I'll be happy to.
May I add.
Yeah.
David, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I would strongly recommend that you now subscribe if you haven't already to this channel, because there will be a lot more coming up about the Commodore 64 Dr. Mix.